I can't stand the fucking centralization of power and authority taking place under a fascist leadership, dude. All the way down to like the government taking over like 10% of intel and shit. It's so goddamn annoying. How come he gets to do it, but God forbid anybody else? Anybody else that suggests it, it's like, nope. Listen, I don't like the Federal Reserve, but he has no power to fire her, and it seems like he's only doing it because she's black and can't fire Jerome Powell. I mean, he can't do it anyway. It doesn't matter. But it is still annoying that he's trying and there's no penalties for it. This should be an important lesson for other people. On the one hand, we got the motherfucker who is actively deploying the military to major American cities, okay, doing a forcible fascist takeover of the nation. On the other hand, Zoran wants to build 5 pilot-tested grocery stores to give people of New York affordable groceries. And people freak the fuck out. Of course, it's supposed to be, it's expected. It's expected that like any kind of centralized authority would only come with a fascist initiative. We would never entertain this kind of thing to, I don't know, push for socialized medicine or whatever, right? That's what I mean when I say this shit pisses me off. Like, it makes me a little jealous because like, I know any sort of movement in the opposite direction is going to obviously shake things up. Problem is, both the liberals and the Republicans, both the Democrats, liberal Democrats, and also the Republicans all the way to far-right Republicans are actively against that kind of shakeup if it's done at the direction of improving the material conditions of the working class. But it seems like we have an endless amount of charity and opportunity to do this exact same thing in the direction of growing fascism in the country. Fuck!
Serious note, when it comes to Fed Governor Lisa Cook, her lawyer has said that they're going to be filing a lawsuit challenging this legal action. What is your response? Are you prepared for a legal fight? And then a little bit more.
Oh, sure. Always. You always have legal fights. Look, I had a legal fight that went on for years with crooked people, with very horrible people, people that have been found out now between John Ratcliffe and Tulsi and Pam. And I mean, the things that we found out, of course, it's a very, very sad group of people. But no, she seems to have had an infraction, and she can't have an infraction, especially that infraction, because she's in charge of, if you think about it, mortgages, and we need people that are 100% above board, and it doesn't seem like she was.
Dude, this 1 minute and 16-second video in and of itself is also a perfect indication of the times, where literally the first 40 seconds is Donald Trump reacting to the Fed's Lisa Cook vowing legal action against being fired. The other half of the video is PBS begging for money because federal funding for public media has zeroed out. Public broadcasting no longer has public funding, ironically enough, because Trump did that. Fantastic. Everything is just like, everything is great. Things are going perfectly fine, dude. It's awesome. There's still quite a crime issue in Chicago. Someone got mugged outside my building at 9 a.m. on a Thursday. What? Yeah, I guess we should deploy the fucking military then. What do you mean? Damn, bro. Crime happened in Chicago? Fucking... Dude, we should nuke it. That is low-key how Americans operate, though. That's why Israel is such a perfect ally. Because Americans are spiritually Israeli. And Israel as a nation state is spiritually American, okay? I saw a crime take place. That means we have to use the most muscular militant approach that we physically possibly can and blow up a hospital in the process. Just, you know, one for the road. Fuck it, dude. Throw in the F-35s in there. What are we doing? Counterpoint, I just walked from my office in the train without a single mugging, so the crime rate in Chicago is 0%. Well, that person got owned. All of a sudden, crime rate is 0.
Is expanding his powers when it comes to using the U.S. military on American soil for law enforcement. He signed a new executive order yesterday allowing the administration to create National Guard units, including...
Come on. No. I'm saying the media acting like it isn't an issue is disingenuous and hurting the problem. Listen, we need after-school programs and better welfare setup. Come on. You cannot measure crime by singular anecdotes. How many times have I had to describe this? You cannot measure systemic problems by looking at a singular anecdote. Crime is a particularly emotional one as well, because it basically destroys the notion that you have in the back of your mind that like society, living in society is supposed to be a fairly safe process. And it is. Okay? The media is not saying crime is not an issue for no reason. They're saying that crime rates are down, okay? As in, whatever shitty solutions that they've offered, which are still obviously not going to eradicate the problem in its entirety, are working. So to go in and try to deploy the fucking military to do domestic policing when they are literally even less trained than our existing police force, which are woefully not equipped to deal with the issue of crime to begin with, is an idiotic solution to a problem that you are inventing.
A new rapid response force to shut down what the White House calls civil disturbances. Ed O'Keefe is at the White House, keeping it civil this morning. Ed, good morning.
Morning, Tony. 2 weeks after President Trump declared a crime emergency here in the nation's capital, Democratic officials in other states say the president's using the threat of sending in the National Guard to intimidate political rivals.
Mr. President, do not come to Chicago.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker had a strong message for President Trump over warnings he may send National Guard troops to Chicago to fight crime.
It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. It is un-American.
But earlier in the Oval Office, Trump said,
Like, the problem is, this actually, because a lot of the crime stuff actually stems from vibes overall and not like hard data, especially because crime-related anecdotes are incredibly powerful and incredibly emotional, because, like, no one's ever saying crime is good, okay? Like, even like having your car get broken into, it creates an environment of panic within you because you feel like your personal space was violated in a pretty meaningful way. Now you also have this like financial issue. You have to pay for this new window, right? Even if nothing was stolen from your car, the very fact that someone was able to like bust through your window without any sort of serious repercussions kind of makes you worried about living in your neighborhood. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, this should never happen. Okay? Yes, but you act like it doesn't matter. Oh. No, it's because you want me to turn around and act like I'm fucking Adolf Hitler when instances of crime takes place. I've been victim to crime as well, okay? I just have a more healthy and normal approach to it. Extra funny to get mad at me while I'm in the process of explaining why people have an emotional reaction to crime. Also, this is interesting. Imagine you join the U.S. military thinking you will support Israel, but instead you are sent to the street to pick up homeless people. So, like, you agree with me, but then you also wanted to still disagree? I don't get it. A big part of what leads people into thinking that, like, America is bedlam right now, it's like in a state of utter chaos, is because of applications like Nextdoor, Citizen, Ring, that, like, freak people out. That's number one. And number two, the media totally leaned into it by hyping up that like crime was exploding and was completely out of control. And it was partially because police budgets were worried. Police departments were worried that their budgets might actually diminish a little bit. God fucking forbid. So it was a counter narrative against like the defund the police initiatives. They wanted to make sure that they packed that shit up real quick. So they really, really hyped up the whole crime is exploding and it's completely out of control narratives. But most consequentially, if you live in a big city, the reason why you feel like crime is completely out of control, even if the statistics show an exact opposite reality, that crime rates are actually lower than usual, is because homelessness is the most visible aspect of poverty and a deep association with like criminal behavior. So you see a homeless person or your packages get fucking stolen from your porch and you go, crime is so fucking unimaginably out of control. That's it. You see homeless people and you go, that's crime. Crime is everywhere. You see poverty and the changes that are created in your day-to-day existence born out of poverty, born out of the desperation that people feel in their hearts, like, you know, locking up goods inside of a fucking CVS or some shit, and you go, ooh, crime is completely out of control. Sometimes CVS decides to shut down because brick and mortar is impossible, especially in the age of e-commerce, where you got Amazon and other giants like Walmart completely dominating the grocery game with e-commerce, and you think, oh, they actually closed down because crime. And these guys actually lean into that crime narrative because they want to hide the real reasons as to why they're closing their stores. The real reason is because real estate is expensive and brick and mortar is far too costly and cannot compete with Walmart and Amazon. But then they turn around and say, oh, no, we're closing it because of crime. But then you look at the actual data and you realize that the areas where they're closing are not like higher rates of crime than other areas. It's just that they're closing it because they cannot fucking compete. It's not justifiable for them to keep paying for that real estate. It's funny because those guys, those executives will then turn around when the dust is settled and openly admit that they lied. No punishments whatsoever, for the record. Walgreens is a great example of this. The chief financial officer of Walgreens, a year after the crime narratives were taking on, turned around and said, yeah, we actually lied about the crime thing. Like, that's not the reason why we closed our stores. But it doesn't matter because the media at the time was also going along with these narratives. And this creates a lot of hysteria. Crime is an ever-present problem in every society. Okay? It happens when there is wealth and poverty so close next to one another. But it's mostly born out of material conditions, born out of the reality that like some people just don't have money and they don't have options and they're desperate. So in a last-ditch effort, they choose to do something that many of you are fortunate enough to avoid doing. Or many of you only do it for funsies, right? Because there's that too, the 5-finger discount. A lot of people do that. Okay, I know a lot of people who have done so, but that's not obviously seen in the same way as like a poor person doing it to, you know, feed themselves and their family. That's the reason why, while crime rates have actually gone down to historic lows year over year, especially this past year and the year prior to that, there's still this notion that people are swept away with endless amounts of crime that's taking place all around them.
It could still happen.
We may wait. We may or may not. We may just go in and do it, which is probably what we should do.
On Monday, Trump signed an executive order establishing new units within the National Guard to respond to public order issues. And in Washington, most guardsmen are now armed as they help patrol the streets. The president had this response to those opposing his use of the military in American cities.
They say, we don't need him, freedom, freedom. He's a dictator, he's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm a man with great common sense and I'm a smart person.
In Chicago, police data shows murders have dropped 50%.
Yeah, he just keeps dropping the dictator shit over and over again. It's probably nothing. Who's saying that, man? Who the fuck is like, oh yeah, Mr. President, please be a dictator? That's strange to me. I'm not around those people. A lot of people, they're saying, you need to be a dictator, Mr. President. I don't want to be a dictator, but sometimes you gotta be.
Since 2021, but auto thefts have jumped up nearly 80%. The city's mayor, Brandon Johnson, said help is needed, just not in the form the president's offering.
Our communities need more federal resources for public safety. There's no question about that. But unsolicited, unwarranted military takeover is not needed.
And in another change the president may be implementing, he suggested Monday that the Defense Department could soon become the Department of War. He said the name change could come in about a week. Gail, it was known as the Department of War up until 1949.
All right.
Let's go back to Donald Trump because he had a lot of choice quotes here. Trump on deploying the National Guard to Chicago. You won't believe it.
So I would have much more respect for Pritzker if he'd call me up and say, I have a problem. Can you help me fix it? I would be so happy to do it. I don't love, not that I don't have the right to do anything I want to do. I'm the president of the United States. If I think our country's in danger, and it is in danger in these cities, I can do it. No problem going in and solving, his difficulties. But it would be nice if they'd call and they'd say, would you do it? So I would have.
Wow.
And most people say, if you call him a dictator, that if he stops crime, he can be whatever he wants. And most people say, if you call him a dictator, that if he stops crime, he can be whatever he wants. I'm not a dictator, by the way, but
I do think legitimately that there is a decent chunk of Americans who unironically abide by that principle, though. Like, he's just saying that, and I want to believe that this is going to be frustrating for people when they hear it, but I am certainly worried that there is a decent number of the American population that do unironically feel this way. They also personally think that crime is completely out of fucking control. They're terrified of black people. They're terrified of brown people. And they're willing to entertain ridiculous shit like this simply because it's dealing with the hysteria that they've been invested in.
Governor Hochul
that she spoke to you on the phone, and you said you might send National Guard troops to New York. You mentioned that. So will you?
I'd love to do it if she'd like. I get along with Kathy. If she'd like to do that, I would do it.
You just described my father-in-law? Yeah. My stepmom thinks the Mexican cartel is in the Hamptons? Yeah. Bukele proved that it's true. If they solve crime, in air quotes, people will walk into a dictatorship willingly. Yeah, the problem is there's just an exchange in criminal activity. And it's more processed, I guess, and it's more legitimate, quote unquote. But like the only thing that's happening in that situation with Bukele is that you're going from the criminal behavior happening in the more decentralized fashion in the hands of gangs to a singular source that is even more powerful than the gangs, which is the dictatorship, the government. That's the issue. And a lot of people think that this creates order when in fact it actually is lawlessness and chaos and disorder. When you get the fucking mass arrest motherfuckers for funsies, like that's lawless.
Citizens or personnel in the area. Do this for every single one of you American citizens. We burn this flag in protest to that president who feels that it's his right to do whatever he wants, make whatever law he wants, regardless if it's legal or illegal. It is our First Amendment right to burn this flag, regardless of what the president says. Yes, remember your role.
So I would have much more respect for Pritzker if he'd call me up and say, I have a problem. Can you help me fix it? I would be so happy to do it. I don't love.
That's the other thing. The burning of the American flag is one of the best constitutional protections that we have here in the United States of America, okay? It has been actively defended by even the most reactionary forces in the American Supreme Court. Okay, it is an incredibly important part of the First Amendment. Many other countries do not do that. I come from a country where there are severe punishments. There are flag laws and severe punishments for those who violate it. Okay, so this is yet another profoundly American protection against government overreach that this government is undermining. Fantastic. It is inherently un-American. Okay? This is inherently un-American. And yet no one seems to see it that way. Why? Because Trump actually has ownership over what it means to be American. Republicans have ownership over what is and isn't American. So people don't read it that way. That veteran burning a flag in protest of Donald Trump's idiotic executive order that is unconstitutional is a perfect example of who is an American in that process and who is not. That guy didn't get arrested for burning the flag. He got arrested for starting a fire in a place where it's illegal to start a fire, just FYI. Yeah, that's still bullshit.
Not that I don't have the right to do anything I want to do. I'm the president of the United States. If I think our country's in danger, and it is in danger in these cities, I can do it. No problem going in and solving, his difficulties. But it would be nice if they'd call and they'd say, would you do it? And they're going to fight me. Like this slob of a governor you have in Illinois. This poor guy got thrown out of his business by his family. I know the family. I was partners with the family. Nice family. I like the family, but he was no good. They threw him out. He's governor of Illinois, and he goes about Trump, we don't need his help. Chicago is the worst. These places are really bad. Crime in D.C. was the worst it ever was. They make up stories. Crime in D.C. was the worst ever in history. And now, over the last 13 days, we've worked so hard. We've taken so many, there are many left, but we've taken so many criminals, over 1,000. I watched a man from Maryland who said to me, I mean, sir, you're the greatest president. You're doing an unbelievable job. What a great job. Governor Moore, has anyone heard of him? Mm-hmm. He's another hopeful for president. I don't think so. But I met him, and I didn't realize it was on camera. Did you see they caught him on camera? I was at a game, I don't know, like the Army-Navy game or something, and I met him in a hallway. And as usual, you do your job very well. One of these great cameramen had it on tape. But I met this gentleman. I never met him before. Sir, you're doing a great job. You're doing an unbelievable job. Thank you very much. But then he goes on television and says, oh, Trump is a dictator. He's a dictator. And a lot of people are so the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, you know, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. I just know how to stop crime. And you would think that Illinois would have such a problem with crime, such a bad governor. He should be calling me, and he should be saying, could you send over the troops, please? It's out of control. It's out of control. In New York, it's out of control. Not as bad as Illinois, by the way. Not even close. So bringing education back to the states where you have the parents running it, where you have the school boards that are local. We have people running from Washington that have never even been to the state that they're in charge of. They've never even been there, and I don't think they care about it. So we want to close up the Washington buildings, sell the buildings off, let somebody else get rich with the real estate, because it'll be a crime-free city. By the way, speaking of that, anybody murders something in the Capitol, capital punishment, capital punishment. If somebody kills somebody in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty. And that's a very strong preventative. And everybody that's heard it agrees with it. I don't know if we're ready for it.
Yeah, good thing states where there's capital punishment in the United States of America have 0 murders or or much lower murder rates than average. Oh, wait, that's the exact opposite, actually. What the fuck? That doesn't make sense. It almost feels like capital punishment is not only inhumane and cruel, but also seemingly not an active deterrent. Very strange.